There's a problem in video games that's rarely talked about. Which makes sense, there's no real term to explain it, and it rarely happens. There may be a term for it, but I haven't heard of it. So I'm just going to call it critical overcorrection. Critical overcorrection, what is that? When a video game releases, reviewers and players end up finding problems. Typically about the gameplay or game design, or at least they should. Problems that the dev may know about but had no time to fix, or problems that they didn't foresee. Any following games fix or improve these issues, that's normal, it's expected. However, sometimes the feedback can be really loud or too numerous, or become a meme, etc. Causing a small panic where the devs, or maybe even the publisher, become terrified of hearing those complaints ever again. They focus on fixing the issue, but they end up going too far, which ends up causing different problems for the next game, or sometimes end up hurting the initial idea and soul of the previous game. For example, in Far Cry 2 there were several checkpoints in the game, full of enemies that immediately start shooting you. You spend time and resources killing them all, then walk away from the base to pick up an item or something, only to come back and find all the enemies have respawned. Eventually, you just start speeding through these zones, but they get into a car and start chasing you. In Far Cry 3 and onwards, they became scared of this criticism, so they made enemies much less aggressive, and killing everybody at a base will eliminate enemies from that area permanently. Which sounds good, but then the game starts to feel really empty as you take over more bases, making the opposition feel much smaller than the story portrays them as. Battletoads on Nintendo was brutal, but Battletoads on Super Nintendo was a brisk walk by comparison. Halo Reach armor abilities caused a few people to scream really loud, so in Halo 4 they made armor abilities completely useless. Dragon Age 2 was criticized for reusing the same maps over and over again. In Dragon Age 3 they gave us the hinterlands. People really love Demon Souls and Dark Souls, but they can endlessly complain to you about future games by any developer making wrong choices in the sequels. Kingdom Hearts was criticized for being clunky, so Kingdom Hearts 2 is really floaty and simple. Sometimes it's not sequels, can even happen with remakes and remasters. Odin Sphere has a classic and refined version. Fans of the original classic version might be put off with the changes the refined version did, and myself included. Classic had a lot of nuance that emphasized resource management. The refined version lost a lot of this nuance when they made the combat very loose, with a lot of combos and air juggling. It's why Odin Sphere now has two types of fans. Ninja Gaiden has been praised for how challenging and difficult they are, although some people couldn't appreciate that. While the upgraded versions of Ninja Gaiden 1 were relatively the same, Ninja Gaiden 2 fans were left disappointed by how much they nerfed the Sigma version. Maybe there are some aspects to the original game that needs better balance, but they went way too far dumbing down and making the game easier. First issue was the number of enemies. In the original, it was insane with the amount of enemies they had attacking you at once, even by today's standards. The PS3 couldn't handle the large amount of enemies and dismembered limbs, go figure, so they were all severely reduced. Some people say this alone made the game too easy. I disagree a bit. Even in OG Ninja Gaiden 2, when there's only one or two regular enemies remaining, they can still mess you up if you're not careful. Ninja Gaiden 1 is arguably a much more difficult and challenging game compared to Ninja Gaiden 2, and most enemy encounters were 3 to 5 at a time. The reduced enemy count really affects the usefulness of Dimpo, and the lack of limbs means that the werewolves can't pick up and throw them at you. The main issue is that they severely reduced how aggressive enemies were. In the original game, holding the block button was the default action, but now in Sigma you can do standing charge attacks right in front of them. Then there's every other change in the game, like the change to weapon upgrades or removing the trials. Here, let me put it this way. In Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, I played through Mentor difficulty, which is very hard, basically without ever dying. If you don't count using a Talisman of Rebirth, or this. Meanwhile, in the original game on Mentor difficulty, I died 5 times in the first fight. Now that's not to say that good design is based on how difficult or how often you die. Sometimes a high death count could be a sign of bad design. Or maybe the person playing the game just sucks. I'm just pointing out how much they overcorrected the criticisms for difficulty. This is why people are so defensive over criticisms of difficulty in games like Dark Souls. There are discussions to be made about certain aspects of those type of games, but the people making them aren't actually interested in the difficulty. They're treating the game like a checklist that they need to do so that they can join in on the conversation. A meme was made to mock a journalist for modding invincibility into Sekiro, and claiming that he lost nothing from the game for it. People have mocked the meme for how overdramatic it was.
You cheated not only the game, but yourself. You didn't grow. You didn't improve. You took a shortcut and gained nothing.
You experienced a hollow victory. Nothing was missed and nothing was gained.
It's sad that you don't know the difference.
He was totally right though. The journalist didn't play the game at all. He could have just watched all the cutscenes online and still written up his article. That's why we don't want developers listening to the wrong people. It's bad enough as is. Instead of our favourite games getting better, they become worse. It must be hard for developers hearing all this feedback and trying to sift through which information is actually correct. Imagine if they sat there and watched these people playing the game. They would look over to them and say, "Hey, get off your phone and pay attention to the game." It must suck observing specific players, watching them fighting a boss, getting smacked around, and the only reaction is,
Why didn't you dodge?